Just waiting for some of you to get on because we're going to do our easy fry bread tonight. I've got my big iron skillet over there on the stove and it's on very low, but I've had it on for probably 7 or 8 minutes and it can stay on low until we're ready to go over there. But tonight we're making the easy yeast rolls, or you can hi Cheryl, hi Deb. You can either make them as rolls or fry bread or any kind of, you can use them for just anything, anything bread-wise with yeast in it. But I'm going to go ahead and get started, and everyone can come in when they get in. But I've got, I've got 1 cup and 2 tablespoons of warm water here in this right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get that yeast activated. And what you want to do is take a 1/4 cup of sugar and just put in that warm water. Don't make it too hot or too cold. It has to be just right. So I'm going to stir that around a little bit. Hi. Come on in, Oklahoma. So I'm going to go ahead and put the yeast in, and I always buy yeast ahead of time, and I'll put it in a pint canning jar, and I can buy it at the Amish for really cheap for a pound of it, and it's vacuum packed. So I just bring it home, put it in one of these, and hi Linda, and I just put it in the freezer and keep it there. That way you'll always have your yeast. If you got yeast, flour, and an egg, and a little bit of oil. Now you can use warm milk for this. Hi Charlene, how are you? You can use warm milk for this. I'm using water because I'm making it so that if you do not have milk and you need a meal or something to filling, that you can use the water, okay? And you really don't have to use sugar, but sugar activates yeast, so that's why I'm using the sugar. So I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of that yeast in there. I usually put 2.5. So we're done with the yeast, and just throw that back in the freezer when you're done. And I'm about due to go get some more this month so I can use this and fill another one up. So I can smell that yeast already, so I'm just going to give that a stir. That warm water or milk and yeast and a little bit of sugar. If you don't want to use sugar, you can just put enough in there to get it activated better. So I'm just going to give that a little stir. You're not going to get all the lumps out of that. But this is one way to tell if your yeast is going to rise in your bread. If it doesn't rise in this, it's not going to be any good to make your bread rise. So that's your taste, right, or your test right there, not taste. So I got that stirred up a little bit. I'm just going to set this aside, and we're going to see how that, while we're doing the rest, how that will just start rising up. And I'll show you when we get there. So next, I'm going to go ahead and put 3.5 cups of flour, just regular flour. I've got everything in here. So 3.5 cups of flour. There's 1. 2. 3. 3 and 1/2. And you always want to keep your flour over here just in case you need just a little more, but usually you don't. So I always have this little bowl I throw down in the flour thing and have that for the extra. Now, let me get the salt. Have you guys ever known me to do a little show and have every item I need? So, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I'm just going to judge it because this is a Himalayan pink salt. You can use regular salt. It doesn't come out very fast with this for some reason. I think that's enough. And the salt kind of balances out the taste a little bit. Oh, I don't know why you didn't get a notification, Laura. But anyway, I've got the yeast. I've got 1 cup and 2 tablespoons of water. You can use warm milk, but it has to be warm. And I put 2.5 tablespoons of active yeast, dry yeast, and a little bit of sugar, 1/4 cup of sugar. You do not have to use the sugar. So see, this is already activating. See how high that's coming on that picture? So we know that's good, okay? So we're just going to take... Now I'm doing this without a mixer or anything so that y'all can do it if you don't have any of that. Because I like to just sit and do it this way anyway. So now I'm going to go ahead and take an egg, 1 egg. As long as you've got your active yeast that's working real well, you really don't have to put an egg in, but I do because what I'm making with this. It kind of makes it a nice fluffy. So I'm just going to take and scramble that egg up a little bit in there. Sometimes a fork does better than these little whips and these little bowls. So I'm glad y'all come on, and I'm anxious to get this easy bread. I've already got some sugar and cinnamon mixed together over there. And I put a pinch, I'm talking about just a pinch of nutmeg. You don't have to do it, but I kind of like that little bit of nutmeg in there. You make it any way you want it. You can do about anything. You can glaze them or anything. So I've got the egg, 1 egg. Now look at this. Look at that coming up over there. I'm just going to let it keep going while we're doing this. So we need a 1/3 cup of oil. So I'm going to go ahead and put the egg in there. I'm just going to kind of mix that around a little bit in there. I made a little well inside there. So just watch that, how that goes up. This is your test to know that your yeast is good yeast. And I've had this in the freezer for this year. So it does not go bad. If it doesn't raise, you'll know that you need to get more. Okay? Hi, Diane. So if you like this video, you know, you could go on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe, and then they'll pop up again for you. So I'm just making a little well here. So remember, we've got the 3.5 cups of flour, the 1 cup and 2 tablespoons of water, which this is ready to float over. See that? Look how quick that rose. That's a really good yeast. And the right temperature of water, which is just warm. Just stick your finger in there. If it's warm, you'll know. Because if you get it to, see that coming out in there? So that's really a good yeast. And it smells like yeast. There's nothing better to me than a smell of a yeasty bread. Okay, now I'm going to put 1/3 cup of oil. Now, this is another thing you can switch out. You can melt 1/3 cup of butter and put in it. It will give it a little more buttery flavor, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it the real simple way. And then we're going to start mixing that around. It's that simple. And that yeast is just foaming up everywhere, guys. I hope you all had a good day. My granddaughter's birthday was today. She's 18, and poor thing, the school called her. Mommy and Daddy was in meetings, and she's sick. So she didn't get to go to her basketball practice. They was buying donuts and everything for the team and stuff like that. And anyway, Papaw here, he got her some chicken noodle soup today and made for her. I said, it's awful you have to eat chicken noodle soup on your birthday. But I think anything made with love will do wonders. So she's trying to get on the mend. That flu bug's really bad this year. Okay, now I'm just going to take my hands and put a little bit of... Hi, Colette. Glad you made it. It's 4 o'clock where you're at, isn't it? And I'm just going to put a little oil around that. And if you put it on your hands, see, you don't have a big mess. And I use the same bowl. This is so easy to make that... And the guys has already had supper. They had... I just made spaghetti with ground round in it. And they had the banana pudding. So this will be kind of like a night snack for them. I'm just going to use a little bit more flour. You judge it. See, it's just a little wet. But when we get done with this, it's going to look nice. And remember, a lot of you know this already, but I always mention it every time. The gluten in this flour loves your warm hands. It's like a wedding to them because they love the gluten in the flour, loves hands and warm. That's why I don't use a mixer, because it's better if you have gluten in your flour to work around it a little bit with your hands. Let me get down in here. So far I've added probably a little less than 1/4 a cup, but that's why I always have that little bowl sitting over here till I get it to just the consistency I want. You just kind of roll that around a little bit. Yes, I will post them. It's just really easy recipe. And I'll let you know, you like with the water, you could put warm milk, and with the oil, you could put melted butter. So there's a difference, whatever way you want it. I'm doing it the cheapest and easiest way, so anybody out there that wants to keep this stuff on hand, it would be easy to make these. See how easy that's coming together? And there's nothing more fun than messing in dough with me. I love it. So I'm just going to put a little tiny bit of oil in there. Put that around in it, the top of it. And then I'm going to make a ball out of that. And you pinch the bottom there together. And there. That's how easy that is. Now we'll talk for a minute and see how much this is going to raise. And the hot skillet will probably raise it anyway. But if it raised in the cup that long, the other night, last Friday, I made pizza dough like this. And I went to set down. I thought, well, I'll leave it in there for half an hour. Well, I think it was 10 minutes later I got up and it was like, it was ready. So that's how simple that bread is. And if you make rolls with this, like little rolls, don't make them real big. I made them real big like this one night. And they'll raise in your oven. And I thought they was just too big because we had to literally cut each roll in half so we didn't have such a big fat roll. But I'm getting some of this off of me. So they'll raise up. All you got to do is make little balls, sort of like about that big. You just twist them like you did the big one. And they'll raise up. I'm going to stick that back in there. It's already closing up from the yeast. My friend Jackie got me this bowl years ago, and I use it a lot for these shows so that you can see inside the bowl, you know, so you can pretty well see what's going on. So I just stuck it in the same bowl and let it rise. It's already starting to rise a little bit. Get the ingredients together and do it with you as you're making these great recipes. That's a good idea. You know, Cheryl, I thought about that. You're saying something I thought about, well, this recipe's so easy that we could have just all made it together. So, you know, that's a very good idea. And me and my grandson and husband was watching the Trickery of the Brain, how our brain works in the back. And when you see somebody do something, sometimes the back of your brain inside there, it actually makes you feel like you're doing it too. And I told my grandson, he's 18, I said, you know, that would be a good teaching tool for, you know, visuals and stuff like that for church, but it's also good for recipes, because I noticed my sister, my oldest sister, she wrote me today and she said, boy, that spaghetti looks good that I posted. And she said, that banana pudding looks good. She said, this weekend I'm going to make banana pudding and I'm going to make the spaghetti. And she makes the best spaghetti in this world, I think. But it made me think of what we learned about the brain, the educational thing we learned. Yes, Kay is my cousin. This is the bread Grandma Romine used to make. It was real simple, and Grandma always made simple dishes, simple things, you know, because she was cooking for a lot of people. And she would fry this bread, and then she would make like cabbage and potatoes in like a kielbasa in a electric skillet. And then we'd have that. And I always loved her bread and stuff like that. So this is how simple. And with pinch and pennies together, this is the best one to make, really. It's the most rewarding for its ingredients. So Grandma actually said water is sometimes better than milk because you always have water somewhere. So anyway, you can see that is growing already. The ball is getting bigger. So let's see what we're saying here. It smells really good in here, and my skillet is over there, and it's already hot and ready. I've got it on real low, but since it's cast iron, it'll lay there and stay to where it won't be so hard to get back up. Oh, okay, Kay. I am going to post the recipe because some of them wants the recipe on there. And I do have another on YouTube, and on my profile I have another video doing something like this. So, but this is the easiest really, because if you don't have an egg, you don't need to put the egg in there. I always do. I'm like to put egg in things. So you don't have to do that. It's really simple. And we have got just a little bit of salt, egg. We got everything done, ready to rise. It's already rising. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip you over to the stove, and we will go ahead and start to use this, because I don't want it to get real big, because I don't want like tons of this tonight. I just want a little bit for them. So I'm going to go ahead and I will take you over to the stove, and you can see the skillet, and I'll turn it up just a little bit, and you see I've got my sugar and cinnamon. It's ready. Let me go get the dough. So I'll have the dough right here. And I will find a place to sit here in this little corner. We put my stove in the corner here when we moved in 16 years ago. We've had to put a new one in since. So, now that we have this done and rising, which you'll have to go back and see how it's done, and I'll post the recipe. Let me just move this oil around in this pan a little bit. Start writing down. Oh, thank you, Cassie. My friend is trying to get me to make a cookbook. I said, wow, I don't even have time for that. But a lot of these recipes I didn't never learn on my own. I always learned them off of somebody. And a lot of times I watched my grandma cook. I watched my mom cook. And I watched the women when I was with my dad on the weekends. I watched them put things together. And I just learned. And something about your brain, a lot of times it just keeps that in like a computer. So anyway, it just does. So I'm just going to sit here like this, and you can see this is already rose a lot. So now we're going to start. You want to pinch some of that off, and it smells so good. And just by this point, you're not going to worry about it getting all over you, because it's going to be ready to, however big you want them. I always do like they do in the pizza shops, except I don't throw it up in the air. So you can, it doesn't have to be perfect, because fry bread, you know, I don't like it to be perfect anyway. These is really good with beans. I don't care what I put them with, or if I put them on the table alone, my crew will eat them. You know, they'll just eat them. They love them. So this is a filling thing. If you don't have much else to eat, you can make some of this. And believe me, my grandma Romine, she cooked some of the, she taught me how to make chicken and noodles and potatoes all at once in a pot. And she fed all of us. So I'm just going to put one little oblong one. See how that'll stretch for you too? It'll just start stretching for you. I'm going to lay that in there. You can hear that. The heat, Laura, I had it on low. I let the skillet sit there on low while I made it. and real low, and then it got it the skillet hot enough, and then I left it on low, and I just now turned it just a little above to where it's not even on medium, it's just a little higher than that. So you want to make sure when you put them in that it's hot but not burning hot, because it'll burn them. See, see how thin that can be, and it'll still raise in that skillet. So I'm going to lay that there, and this is raising as I go, so you would have a lot of fry bread just with that little bit. Make it into patty, and then see how that falls down. And this makes an awesome pizza dough too, it really does. You could probably ball that up in wee tiny little balls and drop that in hot grease and make some of them donut hole things that they have in the Chinese restaurants. A lot of people use biscuits, but I have used these before. Okay, I'm going to just put 3 in there because I don't want to overcrowd these. Put a little bit of oil over here. And you could put a little butter in there. You know, butter burns easy, but you could do it at this rate and heat. I was raised by my grandparents and great aunts. They taught me a lot. I was very blessed with being able to learn. You learn from people. That's the only way we learn anything, is to learn from people. A lot of times we don't teach ourselves. The only thing I've ever taught myself is stuff I probably shouldn't have done. But I watched. I was the type of kid that watched people. I always watched and listened. Not obeyed, I listened to what they were saying. That kind of listen. So see, this is already starting to brown. You want to just flip them. Starting to brown on that. If you get it too hot, you are going to have it burn on the outside and raw in the middle. And just like with pancakes, you want to just do a little squirt here and there every once in a while of oil or butter or whatever, and keep them frying. So that's 3, and it doesn't look like we took any out because it's raising so fast. So I'm afraid I am going to have a lot of fry cakes. If you was all here, we could eat them together and we wouldn't have to worry about it. You see this one, how it's doing. Leave that on there just a little bit longer. You see that one's nice color. Try to press them down, because you've got that yeast in them, to where they're kind of even, because then they brown better all the way around. Yes, you can. And what you want to do if you freeze the dough and you want to make rolls, I would do them in balls like this. That lighting is kind of not good. Balls, lay them on a cookie sheet and put them in the freezer just like that. Lay them flat on a cookie sheet and just freeze them. And then when they get froze, just like you would Buckeye dough when you make Buckeyes and stuff, and when they get froze in the freezer like this, you don't have to cover them. Just take them out and get you a gallon baggie and put them in that baggie, froze, and then keep them froze in the freezer until you're ready to use them, just like the kind you buy in the store. And then you can throw them in your pan and let them raise and stick them in the oven, just like you do in the store. Yeah, homemade jelly would be good on them. I've got homemade apple butter I'll probably drag out for these, because some of them I'll make plain, and Tom likes apple butter on it, and Trace probably does too. So you want to make sure these are cooked through, and don't get in a big hurry, because they're going to taste good if you just let them kind of lay there. Flip them a couple times. You know what? I think I've got some blackberry preserves. I may have to get that out. That's good, Colette. You're right on it, aren't you? Getting things made. I'm trying to teach my grandson how to cure and keep the iron skillets good, because he'll probably want one when he gets older. He'll probably own him one. And, you know, the kids are learning slowly some things. My kids loved this. They loved the fry cakes. I don't feel safe with taking them off right yet. I'm going to leave them on there for a minute. But they're really looking good and smelling wonderful. And I'll post the recipe. And the funnest part about the whole thing is I like to eat them, of course, but I like to watch that activated yeast start foaming up in that 2-cup. You can put it in a bowl, in a 2-cup pitcher or bowl. It just starts foaming up, and it'll keep foaming, you know. And I like to watch that do that. It is perfectly seasoned. A friend of mine, he seasons iron. So he did it for me, and he gave me this one year. He brought it to me, and I was really surprised. Him and his wife made sure I got one, and then I've got some other ones, and usually I'll send mine to him to do, because he does them really good. He gives them a vinegar bath, and he has them in a 500-degree oven, and he just really strips them down and redoes them. And actually, my husband and I were looking at a auction they're having on my birthday, March 5th. And I told him, I said, well, we could go down to that. I see something in there that's kind of cool. It was 3 cast iron griddles that you lay over 2 of your burners on your stove. There was 3 of them. And 2 of them had the, well, one side they had the flat top, and then the other side they had the griddle to do steaks and stuff. And they look a little rough, but I know that if David still does them, he could do a good job getting that to where I want them. And I do already have a griddle, you know, like that. I don't use it very often. So there, I think that's pretty much, because them's going to keep, you know, this is about what it looks like when it's done. So I'm going to, you know what I'm going to do with this one? I'm going to stand up here. We'll show you what I'm going to do with this one. I'm going to throw it in this sugar and cinnamon. Just throw it in there. And I'm going to flip it over. You don't have to have a lot on it. Just enough to know it's there. And I made these at the auction, and they came and just ate them up. So there you are. There's your one with the cinnamon. I'm trying to get it to where you could see it. The cinnamon and sugar on it. And I'll just put that right there. And flip these over. So I think I'll leave that one on there though, because I'm going to eat that. I want that. How many knows the cook always gets the first good bite? They always make sure it's good. So, you know, there we are. We've already got 3 made. And now this skillet is dry, so I need to put a little more oil for the next ones. When I used to do them, I just set them on that and do them out, try to do them as even as I could. And just throw that in there. See, it's starting to sizzle. Yes, it does. So see that skillet is steaming a little bit, but it's not that high. It's cast does that. Thanks for all the likes and the loves. I like to see them. That in there. And you know they don't have to be that big because they're very filling. Yeah, if you go on the YouTube Indian food, they're outside frying this stuff. I don't know what they use in theirs, but I see them frying bread all the time. I like cowboy food. Even if you was out camping or something, you could make some of this. And if you put it on ice, it would keep that yeast down a little bit. And you could get you an iron skillet. We can always use them camping and make it. If your electric goes out, you can make it. Just all kinds of reasons to have a good piece of bread. See that one's, see this skillet's getting to where they're getting done quicker now. It's not taking as long. That oil wants to stay on one side. I think I got an uneven stove or something. Let it absorb that up. So I've got two made like this, and I've got one made in the cinnamon sugar. That light's not going to let you see that very good. Let me see here. So there's that. Put that back there. There we go. So I don't know if I really want to make any more than this, because I don't know how much they'll eat. But what I'm going to do with the rest, I forget who was asking me because I can't read half of them. I'll take this and I'll make the little balls and put them on a tray and put them in the freezer and freeze them, and then tomorrow I'll get them out and put them in like a sprayed pan and see if they work really, really, really good with this recipe. So they just slide too. They don't stick. And if you could smell the front part of my house, it's amazing. I know you all can't wait to make some of these. You're going to be very famous, you know. Like my grandma was famous in making stuff. So, I'm excited about tasting it. Well, you know what? If I'm that excited, I'm sitting here, it's sitting right in front of me. I'm going to taste it for you. Let you know how good it is. That's a good idea, just butter on it. This has got the cinnamon and sugar on it. With that bread not being real sweet, but having the cinnamon and sugar on it, it just tastes perfect. Sort of like, a little bit like an elephant ear or something like you get up there to festivals and stuff. So these are ready. Awesome yeasty bready taste. Put you over here so you can get done. So there's 2, 3. Well, let me do a couple more. I know the guys will eat them. My husband don't care. He'll just get up in the middle of the night and get him one. And then the rest of them I'll put in rolls and make rolls. Freeze them and we'll put them out tomorrow and see what they really do. I've done them before, but I haven't done them for a while. Perfect. A little piece of that edge went on there. So this one's done. And we'll do these and then I'll be done with them. And that really tastes really good, and it just really nice and soft with that yeasty taste in it. And I'd say if you put some butter, melted butter instead of oil, it'll work good. That's going to get done pretty quick. Now, I'm not going to do any more. I'm going to just do that many. Set some butter out, apple butter, and I think I do have some blackberry jam. I'll try it and let them come in and eat it. But like I said, my kids they love stuff like this. And you know, back then, when we lived in the cabin, I had to make stuff like this. I just didn't have money to get fancy stuff. I remember this one woman I babysat for back at the cabin to make a little extra money. And she'd bring her kids, and every day they would have a half a loaf of real stale bread and peanut butter. That's all they got. So when she'd pay me, I'd go down to the store and buy spaghetti and all that stuff, and I'd feed her kids because I felt sorry for them. They said they was tired of peanut butter sandwiches stale. So we'd buy spaghetti and I'd feed my kids and her kids. So basically, I was really spending the money to feed them and have a good time with them. Yes, they are. Now I'm going to turn that stove off. They are very good. And down home. With, yeah, it would be good with pinto beans for sure. Now, sometime I want to show you how to make a simple corn cake. Instead of cornbread, it's corn cakes, and they look like this, but they're not bread. They're corn cakes, and we ate them because we went for a while and we didn't eat bread. But the corn cakes we could eat, and oh my gosh, I could just sit there. I could eat them better than these. I mean, I could just sit there and eat them things. So this is done. That one's done. So I've got a plate of done fry cakes right there. So I will put the recipe in. And I'm glad that you all were on here with me tonight. And we'll have to figure out what we want to make. If I feel good enough tomorrow night, I thought about making some of my chicken legs and potatoes. I bought some little red potatoes about that big around. And I wanted to make a potato with seasoning and stuff like that on it to go with the chicken. So. But I have a favorite recipe I use for chicken. And my grandkids love it. They love it. And it's really simple. So I bought some chicken legs. We'll see. We'll see how I feel tomorrow. But anyway, God bless you. And I will take a picture whenever the bread rolls get froze and show you what they look like. So God bless you all, and I'll talk to you later. If there's anything we want to make, you just put it in the comments. God bless you. I love you all.